Hey, Magic in the Room listeners, this holiday season, we're doing something that's a little bit different. We're going to be sharing some audio essays by Chris, Hannah, and me. And so today, I hope you enjoy this audio essay by yours truly, Luke Freeman, me.
Magic is found in every room where people connect over a shared purpose. In this weekly podcast, Luke, Hannah, and Chris explore the role of purpose, courage, mindset, and culture in every leader's quest for transformational performance.
We Contain Multitudes by Luke Freeman. In Walt Whitman's poem, Song of Myself, he writes that we contain multitudes. This phrase captures the idea that each of us is capable of displaying a wide range of behaviors and attitudes, both positive and negative. The idea is particularly relevant for leaders, as the behavior of an individual or team can have a profound impact on the organization. As leaders, it's our responsibility to understand and manage the various latent multitudes within ourselves and our teams in order to achieve intentional and positive change and growth. In Peter Singh's model of systems thinking, he posits that there is a hidden layer deep beneath observable behavior, a layer he calls our mental models. These mental models, Singh argues, are the driving force behind individual and organizational behavior, and they are often unconscious and hidden from awareness. In other words, just like an iceberg, the majority of what drives our behavior lies beneath the surface, hidden from our view. By changing our mental models, we can bring different versions of ourselves to the surface. As leaders, it is our job to be aware of these underlying forces and to use them to guide our teams toward success. You may have heard this popular story about noticing the cultural elements that surround and influence us. One day, a fish swims up to a school of other fish and asks, "Hey, how's the water?" The other fish just look confused, and one replies, "What's water? We're just swimming around here." The first fish is taken aback and says, "But you're swimming in water right now. Can't you feel it all around you?" The other fish look puzzled, and one says, "No, I don't feel anything. I'm just moving my fins and tail, that's all." The first fish explains, "But your fins and tail are specifically adapted for swimming in water. In fact, the very fact that you have fins and a tail at all is because they are effective at moving you through the water. Don't you realize that water is a fundamental part of your existence?" The other fish are stunned, and some begin to ponder the implications of what the first fish has said. They swim off, deeply thoughtful and more aware of their surroundings than before. Just as different types of fins and fish body types emerge to survive in different bodies of water, I've become convinced that different behaviors and values emerge from people based on their surroundings. In Whitman's Song of Myself, he writes, "Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes." This idea of containing multitudes within ourselves is a powerful one, as it reminds us that we have the potential for both good and bad behaviors, and that these behaviors are influenced by our surroundings. Just as the fish in the story were unaware of the water they were swimming in, we too may be unaware of the cultural and social norms that shape our actions. This idea is humbling. It suggests that we may be overconfident in the rightness of our behavior if we don't fully consider the context in which our convictions are formed. By becoming more aware of our mental models, we can be more intentional in choosing our behavior and fostering positive change in our teams and organizations. One example of the potential for latent behaviors to emerge in different settings is the Stanford Prison Experiment. In this famous experiment, psychology professor Philip Zimbardo randomly assigned participants to play the role of guards or prisoners in a simulated prison environment. What was intended to be a 2-week study had to be shut down after just 6 days due to the extreme and violent behavior of the guards. The spiral dynamics model, developed by psychologists Claire Graves and Don Beck, describes how specific behaviors and even values emerge in different settings. This model suggests that cultures progress through predictable stages, with each stage accompanied by the emergence of unique values and behaviors, ones that are helpful to the culture in the stage that it's in. Understanding the stage of development an organization is in can help leaders anticipate and manage the behaviors that may emerge. An example, I spent many years practicing leadership development in residential camp and retreat center settings. We often spoke of the power of temporary community to change individual and group behavior. In these temporary communities, individuals are often exposed to different social norms and expectations, which can lead to dramatic changes in behavior. For example, a shy and reserved person may become more outgoing and confident, while a typically assertive and dominant person may become more humble and collaborative. I found that the more intentionally a leader crafts social norms and expectations, the more effectively specific individual and group behaviors can be emerged. In other words, if I was intentional in crafting the behavior that I wanted to emerge, being explicit about it, setting the stage for it, then those behaviors would come out regardless of the behaviors of the individuals before they joined the temporary community. As leaders, it's important that we strive to bring our hidden mental models to light so that we can understand the underlying forces that drive our behavior and the behavior of those around us. By doing so, we can begin to exert more control over our actions and choose which of our multitudes we want to emerge in any given situation. One way to do this is through the practice of emotional intelligence, the ability to identify and manage our own emotions and the emotions of those around us. By recognizing our own emotions and the emotions of others, we can begin to understand the psychological forces at play in any given situation and make more deliberate, intentional choices about how to act. In addition to emotional intelligence, intentional leadership is another crucial practice for leaders. This involves using a simple 3-step process that can be taught to anyone. The first step is to notice our environment and our own thoughts and feelings. The second is to intentionally and consciously choose how we want to respond to what we notice. And the third is to act on that choice, oftentimes requiring our own courage and perseverance. By paying attention to our thoughts, feelings, and actions, we can make more conscious choices about how we lead and how we interact with others. However, there's a paradox at play between individual accountability and mutual social influence. While I believe that individuals are ultimately responsible for their own actions, it's also clear that our behavior is heavily influenced by the people and groups we belong to and the norms and values of those groups. This paradox can make it difficult to determine where individual responsibility ends and social influence begins. As leaders, we must navigate this paradox carefully and recognize the role that both individual accountability and social influence play in shaping our behavior. When creating leadership strategy, I tend to lean towards personal responsibility as it's the most practical and actionable path toward purposeful leadership. That being said, the most effective leaders keep one eye toward the water in which they exist, with an admission that oftentimes the most effective approach to affect change is to adjust the physical or cultural environment. By using both individual-centric tools of emotional intelligence and intentional leadership, and by being mindful to create positive and transformative spaces, we can exert more control over our behavior and create the positive change we desire. What does all this mean for those of us who seek to evolve into more and more effective and purposeful versions of ourselves? How do we ensure that the multitudes that emerge from ourselves and our teams are the ones we want to see? Again, Whitman wrote, "Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes." Ultimately, it's up to us as leaders to choose which of our multitudes we want to emerge from ourselves and from our teams and organizations. By using the tools of emotional intelligence and intentional leadership, we begin to exert more control over our behavior and create the positive change we desire. Let us embrace the multitudes within us and use them to create a better world.
Magic in the Room is hosted by Chris Province, Hannah Bratteroo and Luke Freeman, and produced by Ben West. Theme music is by Evan Grimm. Title track Fake Love available on Apple Music, and this podcast was recorded at Storycatcher Studio with video and audio editing and production support by Brad O'Hara and Alicia Crum, with inspiration, strategy and technical support by yours truly, Neil Hughes. Magic in the Room is a production of Purpose and Performance Group. You can find us at purposeandperformancegroup.com, and remember, previous episodes are available at magicintheroom.com.